of how you can invite your friends to watch online with you while you're watching the live stream. You can click on this plus button where it will pull up a list of your friends where you can invite them to join you in watching the live stream. You can do the same on your mobile device. So if you go to this share button here, you will be given a list of your friends where you can send them an invite to watch along with you while you're watching the live stream. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and we hope you stay connected with us, and make sure to like our Facebook page so that you can get all of the updates on what's happening here at Family Church. Hi guys, I'm Katie, and we at Family Church wanted to show you guys how to give on our live stream website. At live.ourfamily.church, you will see the option to give online on the right-hand side of your screen. You will be taken to a safe environment where you can see that your connection is secure. There are two options when you go to give. You can give one time or set up a reoccurring gift. So that's it, but we really want to know how we can support you and your family during this time. So please let us know, and we'll continue to be praying for you guys.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our new night, Wednesday night. We're here with our new edition of Tell Your Story, and we think we got some great stories here today, so stick around and join us. Let me just go through a couple things. First of all, like and share. It's so important that you hit that button right now. If you're on Facebook, you see it at the bottom. You hit that share. This is what happens. You have an opportunity to reach some of your friends who are all online right now. It's proved to be one of our most powerful tools of reaching new people for Jesus Christ, and that's what the church is all about. So make sure you do that right now. And then also, we wanted to just say this. Thank you. Thank you for giving. And we make it very easy for you to give, and we don't really have to ask too hard because you guys do a great job of giving to us. Give.ourfamily.church, and everything that you give helps us during this time to be able to reach other people through technology, and hopefully very soon as we open our church. Well, today on Tell Your Story, I got two guests with us today, Rosie and Marcus Moore. And both of them, all of us here represent the tri-state area, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and, well, Delaware, but nobody here represents that. But so, Marcus, you were in Braddock, Pennsylvania, right? That's where you were born? So
yes.
where is that? I'm not sure.
You know, it's just somewhere in the middle of Pennsylvania.
Somewhere in the middle, okay.
I was just a baby, so...
Yeah, so you didn't know much. So then you moved to the New Jersey area.
Yeah, so I
right?
grew up in an area called Toms River, which is on the East Coast. Seaside Heights is a popular destination there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, well, and then you also sort of have that background also. As you say, the Bronx.
The Bronx.
The Bronx, okay. We all know that very well. So you're in New York. So did you pick a side with football, Giants?
No.
Giants fan?
No.
Oh, what? You managed to get out all that? Yankees fan?
Yankees.
There you go, Yankees. Okay, all right. Well, Eagles fan here. So we appreciate you being here to tell your story. But then your story sort of leads you back to Florida, where you actually met, and you got married in 2006, and you met online, and there's no shame in that, okay?
No.
It's a good thing. A lot of people are meeting these days online, and you know, what a great relationship. Now, your background, Marcus, first of all, so you were a counselor. You do a lot. You still do that sort of thing, counseling, drug addictions.
I've kind of taken a respite from it. I'm not
Okay.
doing it as much. Kind of doing self-employed stuff right now.
Okay.
An officiant, wedding business manager, a little bit of everything in the office, working from home right now.
Okay.
But social worker is my background. I worked at a counseling crisis center for about 6 years. I worked in a Christian-based rehab
Wow.
for about 6 years.
You got a bunch of stories from that era
So
too.
yeah, a lot of counseling, and during that time, it was a good time to be single because it takes a lot of emotional energy to counsel.
And you worked with nursing, a consultant for nursing, and then also in the wedding business.
Correct.
Which you help with the coordination, and you would jump in and do the marrying, right? And,
Yes.
Be
Yeah.
the officiant. And Chuck Carter married you. Is it still working out okay? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
there was no sort of money back guarantee or anything when you married you, so.
No, I always remember his 3 C's, and I actually share that with the brides and grooms that we marry.
Okay. Well, maybe he's gone to 4 C's by now. He's upgraded to a C. So your is centers around, you were, first of all, when it came to coming to know Christ, you were telling your story, and
Yes.
Your story at, what, was college around that
Yeah,
time?
it was in my third year of college. I had just transferred over from a community college, and I was going through a breakup in a relationship, and I didn't know the Lord, and I was Catholic, non-practicing.
Right.
But I read my girlfriend's Bible at the time, and the Lord opened up Scripture to me in 1 Corinthians 6.
Wow.
And the words kind of jumped off the page, and kind of brought some conviction in my life. I thought I was going to heaven, but God was saying, "No, you're not really right with me." And
Wow.
I had the fear of God kind of came on
There was a little seed
me.
planted there.
Yes.
And then later you listen to the radio, and who do you hear?
I heard a message from Billy Graham months later, and I was in a sad time in my life, but you know, God opened me up to the idea that, you know what, I am a sinner. I need to repent. And I went back to my room one night at my home. Nobody was home, and I broke down and cried out to Jesus and asked him to forgive me. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just know that something really powerful happened in that room that night.
Yeah, I have a similar experience. I know how that feels, that overwhelming sense that God is there and he's present.
Yes, definitely.
And well, that's great to hear. And then Rosie, your background in terms of when you came to faith?
I was 10, and my parents were Catholic, but when my mom didn't attend church, my dad did, and I always questioned what we were doing there and why we had to do some of the rituals that we did. And I joke about it, but it's really not a joke. And I would make up stories when I'd have to go to confession because I'd say, I didn't do anything. Why do I have to confess? I mean, to a box of someone that you don't see. And then we went to a revival, sort of like the Latin version of Billy Graham.
Oh, okay.
And a friend of my mom's invited us. And that's really where I gave my life to Christ and received healing for my eyesight. I was almost blind and was able to receive healing and grow closer to the Lord and have been pretty much walking with him. You know, a couple of times you fall off the bandwagon, but you know where your roots are and you come back.
It's so interesting how your backgrounds, both up in the New Jersey area, didn't know each other. You both get saved through, Billy Graham and the Spanish version of Billy Graham. But it's not till you come to Florida that you meet, married 2006, and then you get the news that you're going to have a child. And then what do you start to see as you're going in for the ultrasounds and the testing? Are you noticing that there's anything wrong going on?
Well, everything was perfect as far as your usual morning sickness and that kind of thing. And it wasn't until about the 5th month that I had to go for an ultrasound. They like to do the in-depth ultrasound. And a doctor different from my doctor said, hey, do you normally have high blood pressure? And I'm like, no, I'm usually very low. And they said, well, you've got pretty high blood pressure. And they contacted my doctor who wanted to put me in a hospital right away. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to listen to you because I don't know who you are. And of course, I saw my doctor the next day and he escorted me from his office straight to the hospital.
And what was that a sign of?
I was afraid. I thought I was in denial because I said, I'm usually not high. I'm usually very low. And they said, no, you really do have high blood pressure and it could affect the baby. You could lose the baby. And I just thought, So first hospital stay, I didn't take it as serious. But the second hospital stay, they brought me to downtown Florida Hospital, and it was more serious. I was there several days, and you had the neonatologist that came and said, if you have this child now, he's not viable. He could just die because you're only about 20 weeks. And so that started like a chain of doubt and saying, why we took so long to get pregnant? Why would you allow us to get pregnant and then take him away?
So you have to make a decision here, right? Are they asking you whether you should keep the child or deliver the child? What are all the decisions that are going on?
They didn't ask us that. They just gave us, because the baby was still in there and he wasn't going anywhere. But they said there's a possibility that if I got to the point where I had to deliver early, he may not make it. And then it wasn't until the 3rd hospitalization when they left me there that they gave us the statistics and they said, you have stroke level blood pressure with no symptoms, no lab work, nothing was coming up that, like I'm talking to you right now, that you would never know I had that stroke level blood pressure. And they said, you and the baby could die. This is serious.
So the process then of giving birth to Caleb, how many weeks along was he?
I was 27 weeks with him, so he was 13 weeks early, and he was just 1 pound 10 ounces. It was a crash C-section. I actually had sent Marcus home that night because he was staying with me all those days, and I said, there's nothing going on here. You might as well just go back to work after 2 weeks. So he did, and of course that was the night that Caleb decided to wrap the cord around his neck and do all sorts of crazy somersaults in there. But I woke up to nurses flipping me over like a pancake and throwing oxygen and starting IVs and saying, you're going to have this baby now. It was like a scene from ER. Yeah. And I could just hear them in the background. I called him, I grabbed my phone, and I said, they're taking the baby now. So he turned around and got there, but they weren't going to let him in. But this happened between the time I woke up and the time they actually put me out was probably 5 minutes, and he was out in less than 10 minutes.
So 27 weeks and 1 pound 10 ounces is for preemies. Is that about as young as they get, or maybe they've done earlier 25 weeks or something, but you're on the
He was a micro
highest
preemie.
risk scale here, I think,
Yeah,
aren't you?
he was a micro preemie because of his weight, but we now have babies surviving at 23 weeks, sometimes with some major disabilities, and sometimes they don't have any disabilities at all. It just depends.
All right, so you have so you have Caleb. Now Caleb has a prolonged hospital stay. How long is Caleb in an incubator and they're dealing with it? Does that go on for months?
Yes, months. We was there about 5 months.
5 months.
total.
Almost 6.
And
Fine,
you're
yeah.
out by then, right?
Yes.
So you're at the hospital all the time?
Every day.
Every day we drove over there.
Yeah.
Every night after, and we would sometimes share the responsibility if she was working or if I was working, so we would split it up. I would sometimes go during my lunch hour to go visit Caleb because I worked pretty close by there, or right after work.
So, everybody sort of has these whole ideas about having a child and, bringing them home and all that joy and everything, and you don't face that right at first.
No.
And you said you were starting to ask those questions, God, why?
Right.
We've done, we're faithful, we've done all these things, and now we're sort of faced with this. Did you ever get any answers to that why?
I didn't get any answers to the why, but I got reassurance that he was going to be okay from I was out for 2 days. I didn't really know anything. As a matter of fact, I joked because Pastor Chuck came to see me, and I thought, did I already die, or am I dying?
Or am I seeing Chuck in the light?
Because I knew he didn't usually do the hospital visits for the pregnant women, and I was like, what? But all kidding aside, I knew from the day that I saw him, I just felt the Lord's presence impress on me that he was going to be okay, but I just didn't know that it was going to be such a long road of okay. And every time doctors said, he's not doing well, he's taken steps backwards, we could lose him, they only gave him a 5% chance of survival. And then he would have good days and bad days, but every time we went in the parking lot and we'd turn on the radio to the Z, we'd hear the voice of truth. And that song gave us
I love that
the
song.
encouragement to go on, and that's how we got through that time. And he reversed his weight. That's how we knew God's hand was on this. He was 110 at birth. On the day he went home, he was 10-1.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yes,
So Caleb now is how old?
10.
10. Okay. And how is he now?
He's a little ball of fire.
Okay. And he's at home with the rest of the kids right now doing whatever sort of distance learning and
Yes,
everything.
homeschooling, virtual learning, whatever they want to call it.
But you turned all of this into a movement really in your lives. And you started a foundation. Tell us about that.
Yes, we started the Gift of Life accidentally when he was born during Christmas time. That's the hardest time that you are told that you can't go home. And at that time, we brought cookies to the nurses thinking that that's going to make them feel better. But the reality is we're the ones that don't feel good. And one day when we were washing our hands, I was waiting our turn and I saw this couple and I watched them and they had this solemn face. And then it was Marcus's turn to wash his hands and I saw him with the same face they had. And then it was my turn. And I looked in the mirror and I looked and I said, oh my God, I have the same face that they all have. I said, we have to do something. We can't let this become our situation. So we brought cookies. And then from there, we got in touch with other people and we started with hats and bears. And then now we're a full-fledged nonprofit organization.
So reaching out to parents and families of preemies,
Yes.
giving them hope, support, and comfort during
Yes.
that time. And you're taking a lot of this, turned it into a book,
Yes.
right, that you wrote, and then also putting together the pieces for a movie
Yes,
based
we
on
are.
all this. So this is exciting.
Yes.
You can sit and dwell and ask all those questions, or you can do something about it. Probably that's the answer to why, because they knew that Rosie and Marcus would do something about it and turn it into something that would help other people. So we appreciate you doing that, and thanks for being here today
Thank
and
you.
sharing your story.
Thank you.
Well, next up we have Dina Mapple. Dina and her family I've known for a long time. She's originally from Sacramento and then moved down here to Orlando around 82. And we've known them. We had a Bible study, remember, in the gym, right? We were here at the gym at the Windermere campus, and you guys were a part of that. And I think I remember the birth of your kids. I'm not quite sure what year that was, but I remember when they were very young, when Michael was much shorter than I was, and now he's taller than me, and he scares me. He's so big. 6'8", 6'7".
6'7", 6'8".
6'8", whatever.
Yeah.
It's taller than me, so I respect him. So your mom is Carol Rose. First of all, we talk about most people, if everyone's watching this, they know Carol. Carol's a delight. We love her. But you really realize something about someone when you put their name into the search engine and say, oh, Dina Mapple, because I know Dina Mapple, but let me see what the internet says about Dina Mapple. Well, she has her own Wikipedia page. What? And this is what it says. She is regarded as one of the greatest female water skiers of her generation. Her Grand Slam victory in 1987, overall wins in the World Championships, U.S. Nationals, U.S. Masters Pro Tour, made her one of 2 athletes to ever accomplish that feat. She remains the only American to earn membership to the United States water skiing team 7 consecutive times. That's pretty impressive, isn't it? You're not going to say it was, but Wikipedia says it's impressive.
It just feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah,
I've been retired since 95, and my husband stayed in the industry, so I've kind of been in the industry, but yeah, it just feels like another lifetime.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you're not a Floridian, like I wasn't, we just talked about that, I was Pennsylvania. I never saw anybody water ski. I come down here, it's like all these water sports, and so it's a big deal down here. I mean, that's probably why you moved down here, because that's where the competitive people were, right? The
Right.
training and everything.
I was raised in West Sacramento, California, and my parents went to Acapulco on their honeymoon, came back when I was born. They joined a ski club, and I started when I was 2.5 and just grew with the sport, competitive, did the regional nationals, so around the United States. And when I got older, I came to Florida to train, actually Groveland, Florida.
Oh, yeah.
And cleaned toilets and helped coach
Way to
and drive
go.
and did everything. And then I, from there, got onto the U.S. water ski team.
Yeah.
And so then I needed to be in Florida to train because of the weather.
And the rest is history. And so during this, is this when you meet Andy, when you come here to Florida?
So not right away, no. Andy was from England originally, and so I didn't meet him until 81, I think it was. 81, 83, no, when was it? 81. So I met him in England at a World Championships. He was with his girlfriend in the front seat, and our eyes locked, and that was it.
So obviously in that world, you know each other, you're crossing paths and everything. Then you guys get married. And by the way, Andy, again, another legend when it comes to water skiing, competed professionally from 81 to 2004, regarded as the greatest slalom skier of all time. And during the career, he won 168 events and set or tied the world record on 11 occasions. And then he founded his own company, Mapple Water Skis and everything. So you guys were married at when?
We got married in 87, had our first and only son in 91. Then we joined the church here at Windermere, and 95 my daughter was born.
Okay.
Actually 96, I think.
All right. So so Alyssa would have been, I would have remembered that one. So you guys are married, you know, had all this great success and everything, and then tragedy hits your life. And Andy passes away on August 22nd, 2015. So this is something that's going to shake your faith. Where was your faith before that? Where did you came to know the Lord at a very early age, right? When you were growing up, had this sort of, you were here at the church, very active and everything.
Well, I just always felt like I was a child of God. My mom didn't go to church, but I had friends. A girlfriend took me to the Mormon church. I went to a Baptist church. So I was around churches, but my mom truly, she just believed. And she passed that to me. And because of that belief, I'm sure first it was a head knowledge and then it went into my heart.
Yeah.
And so when my child, Michael, was born, Andy said, something, even after we were married, he said, something's different about you. And what is it? And so we sat in bed and he asked Lord into his heart at that point.
Wow.
And then we came and joined the church.
There you go. So you have this faith, the faith is deeply rooted, and things seem to be going well. Then you get this news. You get this news that Andy is gone. What does that do to your faith at that moment? Because there's a lot of people out there that deal with sudden deaths in life. And it's not like, oh, we got a prognosis and we know it's going to happen eventually. It just suddenly happens. You know, what happens to a person at that moment?
Well, first of all, I would say that our marriage was maybe above average in that we were very close. We never fought. Towards the end, we did have some problems like every other couple, issues come up. But we had kind of gotten through problems, and we're praying together. And so things were going really well. And we had just moved my daughter up to college, Florida State. She did start her first day of sophomore year. And the day before, I had to drive up and tell her the news that we lost her dad. But my faith was always strong. And in my prayers, and even to my husband, I would say, you can have finances, you can have family, you can have friends, but God can give and God can take in an instant. And I don't know if that was always the Lord preparing me for the time that might actually affect me, but I knew my faith was very strong.
And, there's probably, during that time when things are sudden like that, you always sort of wish you have those final moments. I wish I could have said this. I wish I could have said that. Could have done this and all those sort of things. That's not unusual, is it?
No, there's a lot of things that come up after the fact. I got the call from my son. Dad's dead. I mean, it's just not something you expect.
No.
So I got the call, I got in the car, have no idea how I got to the place where I had to be. And all I said all the way was, earlier, my verse had always been, trust, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you.
Right.
And a few months before, I had started to trust in the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Proverbs 3.
Proverbs 3, yeah.
3.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm going to get there. So I must have said that verse all the way for 20 minutes in the car, just repeating it. My girlfriend called, and I picked up the phone, and she said, just trust in the Lord. And it just, at that moment, that was my life verse. That is my life verse. So when you say you wish that there was things you could do, you could ask questions, still, almost 5 years later, why comes up a lot in my vocabulary. Yeah. And every time why comes into it, I say, trust in the Lord, lean not on your own understanding in all your ways, and acknowledge Him. And so that's kind of my life story, is to acknowledge Him and to help others deal with sudden loss. And it's amazing what God puts in your path, because right after, a neighbor lost her husband in a car accident. Another man lost his wife suddenly to a heart attack. So God just uses you, and you don't realize how you're going to be used, but you're used.
That lean not on your own understanding is so important, because there's not a lot that you don't understand everything about why and
you understand
how.
nothing.
Really. And
Nothing.
so we want so hard to get that answer, we don't get it. So what are we going to do? And you've saying you're doing the right thing.
You just have to trust. You
Just
just
trust.
have to trust in that he knows better. He knows the beginning of my story, and he knows the end of my story. And I have no idea of the end. And I just have to believe that he loves me and he has the best interest for me. And whatever happens, the worst in the world, the best in the world, it's going to be made better because he loves me.
You know, and you were dealing with grief on a much wider scale than your average person, because Andy was beloved by so many people around the world. And so not only are you going to have to sort of publicly, privately grieve, but publicly, you know, you got a lot of people reaching out to you, a lot of people leaning on you, and that's going to put an additional pressure that most of us will never understand through all of it.
Well, I think for about 3 months I stayed in my house. And I remember thinking, will I ever be able to smile again? When people would text, I would just send a heart. I just didn't really, so, you know, the stages of grief.
Right.
So the first one is isolation.
Denial and
or
isolation.
Yeah, so I think I did isolate. I wanted really, I had some great friends that have stuck by me from the start to even now. That community is so important. I couldn't do it without them. My family, the church, my friends. I couldn't do it without them. They would just let me talk, and they would just keep their mouth quiet and listen.
And then the other stages we were talking about earlier was anger was the next one. You said you never really went through that one.
No, I never had anger. Because I think my faith was strong in God, and I just knew he had it handled. Now, my son, on the other hand, has gone through anger and maybe still might have some of those angry feelings at God. And that's hard for me to deal with because my faith is strong, and I just have to, again, be patient that God's working on him in his time.
You know, what I love is that, and just with the last couple that were here, you know, they had a difficult situation, but they allowed God to use them. You did the same exact thing. You went through this, and you said, here was the opportunity. Someone across the street is dealing with a loss. I'm going to be used by God and go and comfort them. You now have a platform that God has created in your life, which you didn't ask for. You didn't want that one. But he's created it that now you can share your faith with other people in those circumstances and tell your story of how you got through it. And I'm sure some of that is very rewarding and helping you to see why this is all going, that you can be used by God.
Definitely.
You see that happening.
Oh yeah, and I had the opportunity to go into prisons and jails and do a lot of ministry there, and being able to share just my situation and help inmates that might be going through kind of the same thing. Yeah,
You know,
I
people
see God
think
working.
Christians have this perfect life. We think God's going to just do everything perfect. We're going, you know, the marriages and our having kids is going to be perfect, but it's not that way. And the only thing that God promises is that he'll be with us through it all. And you've definitely sensed him through all of it and have allowed him to use you in your life. So thank you, Dina, for being here and telling us all that. It's very encouraging. And thank you for joining us. And look, if you have a story also, we would love to hear it. If you send an email to story@ourfamily.church, and we'll read your stories, and maybe you could appear here at some point. We would love to know how God is working in your life. So join us on Friday, which will be the next episode. Friday's going to be worship. We'll have our band here. You get a message and everything. And check Facebook for updates, because we're going to have updates on when we're opening next, and Chuck's going to give you a video response to what's going to happen this coming weekend. We hope it's soon, and we can all be together. In the meantime, thanks for being here, and go be the church.